Welcome to another episode of eCom at One, and today's guest is Jason Thickpenny. Now, Jason is the MD of Rocket Railways and Escape Grantham, and I've known him for about 2 or 3 years. And what he might not know is I've seen him speak a few times at different events and thought, this is one sharp guy. He worked for another company at the time, which I'm sure we might touch on and through the podcast. And he's gone on since then, since when I first saw him speak, to speak at many events, and we actually shared a stage not too long ago, about 8 months ago, at an e-commerce event. And I've been trying to get him on the podcast, and thank you, Jason. Jason's agreed to be on the podcast. How you doing, Jason?
Yeah, good. Thanks for the intro. Now, you're right. I did not know that. I did not know that you've been watching me at various. Was it really only 8 months ago that we were speaking in Lincoln? Was it?
No, I say 8 months. I think it was November, wasn't it, last year? So it's about 9 months, I think. November time.
It just seems like a different lifetime ago now.
Yeah, in COVID months, it's about 2 years. Yeah. Like cat years and COVID years, or COVID months.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I feel like we've probably lost like 5 years through the whole thing, haven't we? But yeah, that's a good night. That was. I really enjoyed that, and I got a lot out of that evening actually.
Yeah, good.
Those e-com events are actually really, really good. I'm not just from a socializing point of view, but from a point of view of they got some terrific speakers there.
Yeah.
Who were the guys from the Carpets? I can't remember.
The guys in Grimsby way, aren't they? I can't remember the name myself actually, but yeah, he was fantastic, wasn't he?
They were brilliant. They were absolutely brilliant, and learning all that sort of stuff is fantastic. And I know a lot of people go for the socializing thing, but any opportunity you've got to go to one of these events and listen to those kind of stories and stuff, make the most of it. They're really, really good.
I mean, that's how we met, for the guys that are listening in, where we talked about events quite a lot on different podcasts, but a lot of, obviously it's an e-commerce podcast. There's a lot of e-commerce events out there. Me and Jason initially met, I think at eCommerce Expo, maybe 2 years ago, I think somewhere there. And I know you've done a lot of V-blogging over the years for the different brands you've represented. Sort of got on our radar here at Ecom One, and obviously we've done a lot of work with the previous company you were working with, and then we shared the stage and whatnot, and obviously we met basically 2 years ago is what I'm driving at an event. So it's get out of these events, guys. Okay, so let's get into it. So I think it'd be good to get straight in and sort of tell us about how Rocket Railways got started.
Well, I mean, I've always been sort of a lover of the steam train. So I know I probably don't come across as the typical kind of steam train enthusiast, if you like. But I guess the thing is some kids love fast cars. Some teenagers like fast cars. I like fast trains. It's kind of the same thing. And I guess ever since my parents put on an episode of Thomas the Tank Engine, I kind of fell in love with the whole steam train thing. And then I guess it's one of these hobbies that, I guess for the uncool kids, that dies out when they discover girls. But for me, I kind of kept the hobby up. And then I never kind of did anything with the hobby, if you like. I never sort of saw myself as someone that was going to do this kind of thing for a living. But as we've spoken about in the intro, I've worked for a company that does an ERP system, and they've got a cloud version of their ERP system, and they just said, look, we want you to, Mike, the owner of the company, he just said, look, I'd like you to head up a team, and I'd like you to try and sell our cloud version. And an ERP system, just for the benefit of anyone who doesn't know, it's a stock management system. So it allows you to sell over multiple channels, and then and stops you from kind of overselling. I feel like I'm going into pitch mode for Chaos Control.
You're slipping back to the...
yeah, it's still up there, you see. But the thing is I really wanted to get under the skin of this ERP system and really understand it from a business owner's point of view. So I thought, okay, well, what I'll do then is I'll set up an eBay channel and a website, and I'll sell a couple of things just to see how I get on. And the only thing I could think to sell was some of my model railway bits, because I had quite a lot of stuff that I've been sitting in the loft for ages. Yeah, I had a layout, but I didn't kind of, it was my layout. I didn't sell any of it. And so I just put a few bits online, and loads of people bought them. And it was just like, okay, that's strange. I didn't expect, so much interest. And then people were kind of messaging me going, what, have you got any more? Have you got one of these? You got one of these? And I'm like, well, I haven't, but maybe if I did, then perhaps this could turn into a little side business that, could make me a bit of money at the weekends. And to be honest with you, Richard, that's how I thought it was going to stay.
Yeah.
But then it just, over the past sort of year or so, it just has gone mad. And I think because of the amount of people that are buying online now, and I also think that people underestimate perhaps some of the older generation, they know how to work Google, they know how to work eBay, they know how to work Amazon. And unfortunately, what was happening is a lot of the model shops were closing.
Yeah.
Because people just don't like going to the shops anymore, and it is a niche market. And so all it was a case of, right, well, we'll just get the thing bigger, bigger, bigger. And to the point where it's like, well, now I've got a choice to make. I either dedicate my career in the e-commerce world, or what I can do is take the knowledge that I've got from the e-commerce world and apply it to my own business. So I rolled the dice, and not long after the expo that we were talking about in Lincoln, it was not long after then where I said to the owner, look, I want to make a go of this, and then here we are now. So that's kind of a bit of a brief, if you like.
It's quite a whirlwind thing, and obviously knowing how big you are now, which we'll touch on some of those things. But literally 10 months ago, we were sat at an event, you were wearing a different shirt that night, sort of thing, and now pretty much. You've obviously moved on from that role, set up. So you'd already set up sort of in the background testing, doing, sort of literally, rolled the dice, as you put it. Back then, the odd order, like I think a lot of these things, you start, just if we could sell, maybe if we could sell a couple of these things a week, that'd be quite a night. And then hang on a minute, it's like an hour later, we sold them, and inbox is filling up and more inquiries. And then you start thinking, well, how, what? I think, that's great. Obviously, I think a lot of it is getting started, isn't it? Which is usually that sort of blocker. People get comfortable in their role, and maybe don't start. So I think you obviously took the plunge and made the start, and then not really look back. I think 10 months later. I think I was looking at your LinkedIn earlier. It's literally 10 months ago, which is crazy.
It's mad to think that. Absolutely mad to think that. But yeah, that's how we came in, how we came to be. And like I say, I'm surprised just how quickly we've managed to grow. But we've obviously hit on a market. And I guess the thing is as well is that although we're not in a space that's crowded, there's a lot of people that are doing this kind of thing now. But obviously for the past kind of 2 years, we've got a really good reputation in the industry now, and that's been the key, obviously, one of the key strengths with regards to our growth. So
what would you say, obviously you've come from this e-commerce background in terms of, obviously you've been working with a lot of e-commerce businesses with your previous company. What would you say, how has that helped you? What experience did you bring from that? Obviously you're aware of ERP, you're very much aware of e-commerce, but what other things did it give you that you brought into the business?
I mean, obviously it's helped me from an e-com point of view, but also helped me from a business point of view as well, because every day I was talking to business owners and understanding their challenges, and really getting under the skin of their business and working out what their challenges were. So I guess the thing is what it did, it kind of gave me a head start with regards to my business, because I was already ready for the challenges, because I already kind of knew what was going to happen with them. So that's then allowed me, I think, and I think that's been the key as to how we've perhaps grown quicker than maybe others, because I already know some of these challenges that are coming. So therefore, I was able to put all of those things in place, those solutions in place, kind of before the challenges started, if you like.
Maybe give us a couple of examples then. Obviously, in this 10 months, you've had a couple of probably key growth areas and key things you've had to put in place. What sort of things, the guys that are listening in that are maybe a year, 3 years in, obviously you've expedited things, that year, 3 years, the guys that listen to the podcast, what are the sort of things they need to be thinking about, and what sort of things they can do to speed up that process?
I think for me, Richard, the first thing I would say is that I saw a lot of business owners that were running around like lunatics every day. And the reason is because they just refused to employ people. Yeah. And I think the thing is a lot, and I think this is the case with a lot of business owners. And I think I was guilty of it at the start as well, where you become a control freak over your whole business. And it's your baby, so I completely understand why, but you've got to get good people in really quickly. So the first thing I would say is employ people before you can afford them. And be prepared that you're going to probably pay an employee more than what you're going to take out of the business. So if you need to go and do some night shifts somewhere to be able to keep the bills coming in, then you're going to need to make that sacrifice. But unfortunately, I think what a lot of business owners do is that they end up doing every part of the business. Yeah. Now for me, Richard, the key thing is that I want to sack myself from every single aspect of the business. So don't wrap parcels. And I realized that really quickly, that shit, I'm spending so much time on wrapping parcels every day because we've got 100 orders And then I just thought, well, what am I doing? Why wouldn't I just pay somebody else to do it? And then I can focus on the marketing. I can focus on installing new processes, installing new systems, which I already knew in my head that I wanted.
Yeah.
But and that's the key. So the first thing I would say is that if you're 3 years in and you still haven't employed anybody, then you need to change that really, really quickly. So get employing people really quickly and get good people in quickly. And with these new schemes that the government have got going on at the moment, it's never been a better time to start employing people. So that's the first thing I would say. And then the second thing is that backward plan the whole business. So and work out what your ethos and where you want to sit in the market. So there's loads of people that are doing, railway parts and all that kind of thing. And so we decided right from the start, we want to be the best for used model railways. So although we have accounts with some of the big players in the market, we don't buy new stuff anymore because that market is quite crowded.
Yeah.
So, and that's the other thing I would say to other business owners as well that are looking at doing this, that pick what space you want to sit in and then own it, as opposed to trying to be all things to all men.
Yeah. And I would imagine a lot more margins in that sort of side of the business.
Of course, yeah, there is more margin in it, and then suppliers don't have you over a barrel. I mean, we had a guy, and I hope he's listening. Actually, he won't be, but if he is, that'd be great.
I'll tag him, shall I?
Tag him, yeah. So we had this guy from Pico that came, who were a big model railway, thing. They make like little parts and stuff, and he was just a charlatan. He came into the shop. And instantly he just said, well, if you want to sell our products, you've got to put them on that rack. You have to sell them at this price. And then I was just like, no, if surely as a supplier, you just want to get your products out there to the traders and let them sell. And then it was at that point that it was just like, no, we don't want to deal with any of this. We will have ultimate say on what products we sell, how much we sell them for. And nobody else has got to have any input. And yes, it is harder because we obviously used items. You have to take photos of everything. It's harder to buy them. You have to compete a bit more. You have to look a bit harder for them. So you have to work a bit harder to obviously find them. But you get the reward with it as well. And it does mean that we can own that space now.
There's a lot less crowded, isn't it, in that market? I'm guessing, people are not as many people anywhere near are going to go to those lengths to source the product, photograph the product, spec the product, check the product, test the product. It's very laborious, but in return, you're not, as you put it, over a barrel with the 5% margins or whatever it may be. Yeah.
And they're terrible. I mean, there was a news article today. Sorry, this won't interest 90% of your listeners, but for the 10% that I love their model railways. So there's a big company over in Sheffield, and they've just had a memo that's been sent out today that then they're not selling any Hornby products anymore. So there's obviously been something that has happened over there as well. But I think what's happening is that Hornby, who are obviously the company that everyone's heard of, and now selling directly to the end user and cutting out the shops. And I understand why they've made this call, because obviously COVID has kicked in. No one's going to the shops anymore. Hornby have gone, how are we going to get our products out? Oh, we'll just sell them to the end user and they can buy them off our website, and then done that accordingly. So I kind of understand why Hornby have gone down this direction, and I'm glad that we don't actually have anything to do with them anyway. So it's kind of worked in our favour.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. So sort of reverse engineering that 3-year plan and so sort of with the end in mind, or the end clarity on where you want to be, and then hiring before you can really afford it is what you're saying. Yeah. If you're sitting there packing 100 boxes, there's that is an amount of, say a £10 task, £10 an hour task, where implementing a new ERP or investing in marketing strategy and XYZ is maybe £500 an hour task. Which one should you be doing? So it's making those moves as quick as possible, and it is quite a scary move, isn't it? I think that takes a certain personality potentially.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think but you've got to be able to let go, and you've got to pass trust to other people in the business. And it's brilliant, actually. I mean, I probably come into Rocket Railways maybe once a week now, because the rest of the time I'm focused on doing the sales and marketing. Brilliant. And I'm focused on trying to source, obviously, other products. And our operations manager, Paul, who was the guy who I sourced for packing the parcels in the first place.
Yeah.
He's now become operations manager, so he got promoted really quickly.
Yeah.
And I trust him with the keys to the business, you know. And if you can find somebody like that, so you can be proactive in growing the business, then you'll do well. If you're just going to get stuck in that rut, it's going to be difficult.
So they're along for the journey as well, and are going to benefit of the growth and and the opportunities, the financials that came in to pack boxes, and now he's operations manager. And I know obviously you're on quite a you've got a big growth plan in place. You've got a lot of recruitment imminent. So exciting times. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So for the guys that are listening in, that are maybe just about to start, what sort of advice would you give to them, to someone who's just about to start their e-commerce store?
From an e-commerce point of view, there's a few things I would say, which is, and I'm aware of your business, Richard, so I want to be very strategic as to what I say and how I say it. But I think I'm hoping that you're going to agree with me with this as well, that when it comes to the e-commerce side of things, there are so many options, so many different platforms, so many different websites that you can decide on. So you've got Magento, you've got Shopify, you've got BigCommerce, you've got bespoke ones, you've got EKM, you've got all of these platforms. Now, this is just my opinion, that we've recently gone to a WooCommerce site. And the reason we've gone to WooCommerce is because there are lots and lots of options when it comes to your agency. So for example, if we had a VisualSoft website, for example, VisualSoft is brilliant, by the way. I can't speak highly about them. They've got a great thing. But the reason why we didn't choose VisualSoft is because if in 6 months' time we don't like what it is that they've done, you can't just pick it up and then give it to another agency.
Yeah.
It has to fit with VisualSoft. Whereas at least with the likes of WooCommerce, there's lots of agencies that are doing it, so you can just pick it up and give it to somebody else.
Yeah.
So what I would say is this, and again, this is just my view, pick one of those ones where you've got then options to be able to be flexible. So we picked WordPress, like I say, because we could give it to other agencies. There's loads of plugins for it as well. And that's what I would say from the e-commerce point of view. Keep your platform nice and flexible, where you can add stuff to it. What I would say is I think all of them have got strengths and weaknesses. So you've just got to pick which one you like the best and is best for your business, and then build everything else around it. And look for the one that's going to be best for your business, as opposed to looking for the one that's cheapest or the one that's free or anything like that. And then build everything around that. So like I say, we've got the WooCommerce now, and now we've got all of these really cool plugins that we can now put over the top of it. So we've got subscriptions, we've got bulk editors, we've got all of this kind of other stuff.
You've got a lot of control there and ownership, where you're not tied into a third party that only that team, or whether there's a 10-man band or a 200-man band, it's yours. And there's a sort of ecosystem out there of developers and people that are reasonably priced, and it's not very, very, very specialist, where you might be hundreds of pounds an hour, like WordPress is WooCommerce is WordPress, isn't it? So it's it's like the most popular platform in the world. Lots of people on WordPress, lots of sort of very talented developers.
And I'm not saying that WordPress is the best. What I'm saying is WordPress was best for us. And we are planning to do one piece of content a week, and the WordPress blogs are really strong. There are, it might be that somebody else might get better on with a Shopify. It just depends on your business model. But then when you've got it, just remember that you're going to get stuck with it. And I think it's the one mistake that I think we made, where we went from BigCommerce to EKM to Wix, and now we're at WooCommerce. And I just
in a year.
What we'd have done is just researched it a bit more beforehand, and then we'd be probably our website would be a year further down the line. So that's kind of a bit of a regret, but you learn these things, don't you?
But you can't fault that speed. If you've done 4 sites in a year and got to where you are, it's insane, in a good way, isn't it? It's like, you push through, right, okay, learn from that process, right, well, we need that. And I think, you quite often don't know till you're in that space, isn't it? So also getting advice from people that have got, that have maybe been there, done that, and are independent. They're not they're not a Magento dev, they're not a Shopify dev, or maybe they're a bit of everything, but that independent advice, that's going to help you. Yeah. Okay. So we're on WooCommerce. Obviously, lots of options in there. Any other advice you give them sort of away from the platform? So they've built their site. Has there been any other sort of big takeaways in that sort of getting started phase?
Yeah, I mean, obviously from a stock management side of things, then that is obviously really key. And the thing is that we don't pigeonhole ourselves into selling over one particular marketplace. So we're still big on eBay, and we will continue to be big on eBay. But you want to be getting a system in that is going to help you with your stock management. And I'd say again, and this is again why you need a good web platform that has got an integration with an ERP or with a stock management system. And don't put all of your, don't just sell over one marketplace, because as I've found out fairly quickly, that when we started selling on Amazon, we were doing really, really well on Amazon, and then all of a sudden one day like that, they just said you can't sell on us on here anymore. Now, if we'd have been selling on there, that would have been a problem, because it's taken us like 3 weeks to get our account back with Amazon. It wasn't anything that we were doing wrong or anything like that, but it's just everything is controlled by an algorithm, and if everything's controlled by an algorithm, then it will just get shut down. But at least
you have no control in effect. One day, if that 3 weeks was 3 weeks run up to Christmas, and you're doing, it's not a good 3 weeks, is it? So we've got some good takeaways there. So for the guys that are listening, you've got, if you're relying on one channel, 2 channels, one or two of those channels are, say, like Amazon, for example, and eBay, and there's a problem with your account through no fault of your own, it's a major problem. It's pretty obvious, but I think, a lot of people are just on eBay still, are just on, obviously you can go to their site, but they're not investing in the wider sort of marketing, whether that's, obviously there's a lot of options there, we don't need to go into them all, but, to spread the risk, I think, is the takeaway there, isn't it? Make sure that we've got orders coming in from other channels.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And also then, and this is perhaps a mistake that I think I've made as well, is that I was too heavy on the marketplace straight away. What I wish I'd have done is built Rocket Railways as a site before then expanding onto the marketplaces. We kind of did it the other way around, and I kind of regret doing that now, but you learn from these things. But yeah, what I'd say is get your website sorted out first, and then have your channels kind of built onto them as kind of extra things to sell your stuff, as opposed to doing it the other way around.
So that leads me on to my next question perfectly. So you touched on, so you've got stock on all these different marketplaces, whether that's, eBay, Google, Amazon, etc., etc. But if you've got small stock quantities, you can easily sell out quite quick. And then you can have challenges with your stock management. But you obviously said about having an ERP system integrated. So when somebody buys off one platform, the stock level is adjusted, and it then shows the correct, it adjusts the stock, basically. Obviously, there's a lot more than that, but that's a big part of it. So obviously, you've got physical store. And so if somebody walks into your physical store and buys your particular products there and then that happens to be the last one, which in a lot of cases it will be with your products, won't it? Because they are unique, they are second hand, etc. Obviously, that stock goes down to 0, and then the ERP system will then take it off the website, etc. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So I think the guys that are listening in, it sounds quite obvious, but quite often, there is nothing worse than going to a website, placing an order, and then getting an email saying, sorry, it's not a good first experience.
It's not, but also if that happens on a marketplace, Amazon and eBay penalise you something chronic if you ever do that. They'll start, I mean, already their fees are astronomical, but this just makes their fee even bigger if you happen to sell a product, particularly on Amazon, you don't have. Amazon penalise you something chronic, which is why your stock management system's got to be really, really tight.
Yeah, and the same for paid ads. If you're running, Facebook, Google ads, you're paying for a click ultimately, and you're taking them to a page and then processing an order that you can't fulfill, creating probably an hour's work if you're doing manual. So with the physical stores, I know obviously, like I said, you've got physical stores. Where do you sort of see the industry going? Obviously, there's a lot of different e-com businesses out there where there's a benefit to having a store and maybe not that more so. But what's your take on the sort of physical store, e-commerce store?
It's a really good question, Rich. And obviously, it's been very difficult because when COVID hit, we were just like, right, what we're going to do now? Because obviously, we had to close the shop. Yeah. And even now, we still have limited to having one person in the store at a time. And we love our customers dearly, but my God, can they talk? And they want to talk about their layout because they're really.
I can imagine.
And we love that, and that's great. But the thing is that what we try to do but the problem is if one person comes in and they spend 20 minutes in there, you've got somebody else in there that wants to come in as well. So we've had to limit it to sort of 15 minutes. Per person coming in, and that is obviously, it's not isolated people because the majority of people understand that this is the way of the world at the moment. So I kind of think that obviously right now your e-commerce is going to be much stronger than your bricks and mortar store, which is why I'm really glad that we picked a premises for our store which was out of the town centre, so it means we pay much cheaper rates, and that is going to continue. So we're always going to try and stay on the outskirts, and what it means then as well is that people feel a bit more comfortable about coming here. Not only can they park their car for free, but also they haven't got to worry about going shoulder to shoulder with lots of other shoppers. So that's been an advantage. I think, if I'm honest with you, I think it all depends. To answer your question, because I haven't answered it yet, sorry. I think to answer your question, I think it all depends on what your store is like. So for me, the plan is with Rocket Railways is that when somebody comes to our store, they will have an amazing experience. So we are going to turn it into an experience place. It's not just going to be a place where someone will come in and they'll buy a product like they do at the moment. Yeah. They'll be able to come in. They'll be able to have a membership to Grantham Model Railway Club. So they can come in. They'll be able to have a coffee, which they get. They can grab themselves a book out of the Rocket Railway Library. They will be able to play with our exhibition. They'll even be able to come in and one day and be able to have a beer, which will be served on a G-gauge model train. So,
hey, I love it.
What's going to happen? But the thing is that for me is the key thing, that if somebody is going to go to a store, they need a reason to go and they want to have a really good experience when they come to it. And so for me, the store at the moment is, because of COVID, the store is just almost like a glorified warehouse at the moment. It's filled to the brim stuff, and then we kind of have our dispatch area in the shop, which is not where I see it permanently, but for now it's kind of the way that it is. But once we kind of come out of the whole social distancing thing, which we will do one day maybe, then we can start making plans for it. And I think at that point, I think we will probably make as much money in our bricks and mortar store as what we will online. And for me, that's where I'd like to keep it, is kind of doing the 50-50. That's where I see it for us, but it all depends on what your bricks and mortar store is going to be.
So it's having that, obviously adapting, which is obvious, but like that experience, which you're very fortunate that you can do more so, I would imagine, than a lot of people, because you've got that type of product where people are very passionate about. You can say that now, a lot of industries. That you had me there. I was like, when is this opening? I'm coming over.
That is we're actually building it at the moment, and I spoke to you obviously before you hit record, but at the moment we're actually building it at the moment. You mentioned at the start I own Escape Grantham as well, but what it is that because of COVID and Escape Grantham being closed, what we have decided to do with it is to turn the escape room into the warehouse for Rocket Railways, and then the warehouse that's currently for Rocket Railways, we're going to turn into the exhibition centre. But we're tearing it up at the moment, and the white wall behind me is kind of the only space at the moment that isn't kind of got holes being drilled into it and shelving and all this kind of thing. So like you said, it's all about adapting
Yeah.
For the current circumstances.
Brilliant. Lots of things to think about there. So we talked about the different marketplaces, and that's been a big part of your business. But is there any sort of other takeaways there about the best sort of marketing strategies that have worked for you? Obviously, it's a very rapid growth. 10 months in, you're saying Amazon's been really good to you and very good for you. Obviously, there's some ups and downs with that, with the marketplaces. But what would your take be on the channels that have worked best for you, and maybe the things that you've found from that, and the things that you're now going to do?
Yeah, sorry, Richard. Just to correct you, that's my fault for not being clear. Amazon has not been good for us.
Sorry, no, you did say that. Yeah, it's eBay has been good for you.
Yeah, eBay is really good for us. Amazon we sold really well over. To be fair, Amazon would be a really good marketplace for us if their seller customer services was a bit better. But the problem is that because we're quite unique in what it is that we're selling, we kind of need a bit more help on the Amazon seller side of things.
Yeah.
Because obviously these products are secondhand, they don't have automatically ASIN numbers and all this kind of thing, which is obviously Amazon demands. But yeah, eBay is obviously for secondhand stuff. eBay is always going to be good, but Facebook Marketplace, I would say, is not necessarily good for us from a point of view of selling stuff, but it's a good vehicle for driving traffic to the website. Due to the generation that we sell to, I would say Facebook ads is without question the best for us, and Facebook ads are really cheap at the moment for us as well. So that's definitely been a big thing for us. Believe it or not, Instagram has actually been really good for us as well. So we obviously have our own Instagram side of things, but yeah, the social media just in general has been really, really good from a marketing point of view. And then of course the other thing is direct mail. We use a database, and sorry if I'm going to swear to you now, but we use HubSpot, and HubSpot, I've got to say, has been superb for us. It's brilliant. So HubSpot, and this is again the key with regards to the tech that you're going to use behind the scenes. Yeah. So we've got HubSpot, and then we use a product called Applebee, which then connects our eBay to our HubSpot. Okay. And then anytime that anybody orders off eBay, it automatically, all their information comes into HubSpot. Now, of course, it's all GDPR compliant before anyone starts preaching in the comments below. Of course, it is all is compliant. But yeah, that's essentially what we use. And again, just going back to the advice that I would give to somebody that's looking at starting in e-commerce, that when you sell to a customer, make sure, for goodness sake, that you keep the details and you follow up with them. Because the direct mail for us is obviously a big thing for us.
Yeah, I think it's the amount of people we've spoken to on the podcast and direct mail. I mean, it's just, we'll say coming back, because I don't think it ever went, but a lot of people obviously abandoned it, or or online. But obviously, we all get 200 emails a day, don't we? And obviously, email definitely works as well. I'm not saying it doesn't work.
There is that, but also what it allows us to do. I'm gonna do something. I know that people are going to be listening on Spotify, so they won't be able to see this, but we like to be able to give what we would call customer cuddles as well. So what I mean by that is that if we have, so we've got probably 10 customers that have ordered from us more than 30 times in the past year. Yeah. So what we will do is once every quarter is we'll send them something for free. Now it doesn't have to be big, but we'll send them something like this. All right. So for the benefit of anybody who's listening, this is just a very standard BR tender, and it will cost us probably £5-6, I would say. Yeah. And we send them a free gift like that at the end of every quarter as a way of saying we really appreciate your business. And I think that is really, really important, because then obviously, and especially with an industry like this, everyone talks. So and people will talk. That's the thing. And people will, if you're into football, then they'll talk to their football friends. If they're into model railways, they'll talk to their friends that are in the model railway. And if they say, "Oh, Rocket Railway sent us this, isn't it cool?" then that's just going to only be a good thing for you. And and that's cost the company £6. So but this is the key thing. If you keep hold of their details, if you don't, you ain't going to know your biggest customers are, right? So yeah, that's important.
Again, such a wonderful experience. You talk about the experience of them coming into the store and having an experience there, but then just out of the blue, every 3 months or so, they're getting this gift. Like, oh my God, how cool is that? You know, it's just what a nice firm to work with or to buy from, or to, you know, it's like you say, a lot of these people talk, you know, they're in a network of friends that are into that thing. Oh yeah, I bought this from these guys and they sent me this 3 months later, you know. Yeah, I love it. Just that sort of retention strategy that a lot of people are so wrapped up in trying to win new business. But hang on a minute, you know, if we could just look after the people that we've got already, you know, and focus there. So last couple of questions, Jason. So if you could sort of look over the last 10 years, what would be a bit of advice you'd give yourself 10 years ago from something that you've learned or things that you've learned over the last 10 years? Deep.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's funny, really, Rich, because you put that in a message to me on LinkedIn prior to us going live, and it's one of those ones that was probably the most struggle to answer, because I think 10 years ago I probably wouldn't have listened to myself, to be fair. So that's probably the difficult thing. I think probably the first thing I would say is that roll the dice. I think that's probably the biggest thing I would say, that actually you've got to be able to take a few risks, and for me, this is something that I should have been doing 10 years ago, and I think had I been doing it, it would have gone, you know, we would be in a much stronger position. But I think the thing is that I didn't surround myself with the right people. I didn't do enough in terms of self-development. I didn't do enough in terms of, like I said, taking the risks. And these are the things really I should have been doing. So it's only recently where, for instance, I've read Losing My Virginity by Richard Branson. Amazing book. And if I'd have read that 10 years ago, I think I probably would have just waved bye-bye to the corporate world and set up on my own. It was massively inspiring. But this is stuff that I should have done 10 years ago. But yeah, surround yourself with people that are really going to support you and are going to help you. And be prepared to take the risk, and be prepared that it all could go horribly wrong. And be okay with living with those consequences. And it might get, Rich. It might all go horribly wrong for me. I don't know. But the thing is that if I don't do it, I'm never going to know. Yeah.
Great. That is brilliant. Now, the final question we always ask, you have answered it to a degree. We like to finish every episode with a book recommendation.
Oh, okay, right.
So, obviously, you've mentioned "Losing My Virginity" by Richard Branson. Would that be the pick, or have you got one that trumps that?
Oh, do you know what? It's really difficult, Rich. I mean, the thing is that that business book from Richard Branson, it kind of more talks about his life experience as opposed to giving business advice.
Yeah.
Getting Customers by James Sinclair. That's probably out of all the books I've read from a point of view of development, that probably is the one that's helped me the most. From a motivational point of view, there's a great book by a guy called Brad Burton called "Get Off Your Arse." That's what it's called. He's a proper northerner. He's come from, you know, a difficult background and has created the biggest networking company in the country, and it's a brilliant book. But yeah, I would say from a point of view, it depends on what you kind of like to read, to be fair. But that's more of a self-help book, whereas Getting Customers by James Sinclair is brilliant from a point of view of giving you great business advice. So am I allowed to do two?
You can do two. That's fine. We'll let you off. I think you even stuck a third one before that, didn't you? So we've got two.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Jason. I think there's a lot of good takeaways there. You know, I'm really looking forward to listening to this one back myself, to be honest. You know, cracking podcast. I'm looking forward to getting it live on Monday for you and for us. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. So for the guys that are listening in that want to find out more about Rocket Railway, more about yourself, what's the best place for them to connect with you and the brand?
Yep. So if you are into your model railways, which is going to be, probably only a very, very small number that's perhaps going to listen to the podcast, all the W's, rocketrailways.co.uk. But also, if you like a good escape room, then I don't want to forget that. It's obviously a very different business. It's got nothing to do with e-commerce, but perhaps I can just plug that quickly as well. But if you enjoyed the likes of Crystal Maze back in the 90s, this is a very similar kind of experience that you can go and do in Grantham. So all the W's, escape-grantham.com, and you'll be able to book one of our escape rooms, and there's a new Egyptian one that's coming soon. There you go, little plug.
We might be seeing you. Our team might have to have a little trip over.
Oh, come on down, mate. It's great fun.
Great. So we've got the Rocket Railways website, and we've got the escape rooms in Grantham there. Brilliant. And obviously can connect with you personally on LinkedIn as well.
If you put in the name Jason Thickpenny, there is nowhere to hide on the internet with a name like mine. So feel free to connect with me.
Well, thank you so much for the interview and for the podcast.